The Education Cold War. Why China and India are redefining academic excellence. The year is not 1950, the weapons are not nuclear, and the battlefield is not the sky or the ocean. The battlefield is the classroom. Right now, a silent competition is unfolding between the two most populous nations on Earth. China and India are locked in what many analysts are calling the Education Cold War. It is a race not for territory, but for intelligence. Not for missiles, but for minds. And here is the shocking part. While many Western education systems are struggling with declining test scores, China and India are producing millions of engineers, scientists, and technology experts every single year. So the real question is this: are we witnessing the rise of a completely new definition of academic excellence? Because what these two nations are doing with education could reshape the global economy for the next century. Before we go deeper, subscribe to the channel if you want clear insights into how education, technology, and global power are evolving. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit the like button because it helps this research reach more people. Now let's begin with something most people completely misunderstand. This story is not about who has the best schools. It is about who is building the most powerful learning machine in human history. And that machine is fueled by scale. China has over 290 million students in its education system. India has over 250 million. Combined, that is more students than the entire population of many continents. But scale alone does not create excellence. What China did next shocked education researchers. Instead of copying Western education models, China built a system designed for national strategy. For decades, the Chinese government has treated education as an economic weapon. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics became the core focus of the national curriculum. This is why China now produces more STEM graduates every year than the United States, Japan, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom combined. But numbers alone do not explain the story. The real turning point happened in Shanghai. In 2009, Shanghai entered the international PISA education rankings for the first time. These tests measure how well students apply math, reading, and science knowledge to real-world problems. The results shocked the world. Shanghai students ranked #1 globally in math, science, and reading. Not just slightly ahead, far ahead. Education experts around the world suddenly began asking a difficult question. What exactly is China doing differently? The answer begins with one word: intensity. Chinese students typically spend significantly more hours studying than students in most Western systems. Academic discipline is deeply embedded in the culture. But this intensity is not random pressure. It is strategic pressure. China uses extremely competitive national exams to identify top talent early. The most famous of these exams is the Gaokao. The Gaokao is often described as the most difficult standardized test on the planet. Millions of students compete every year for limited spots at elite universities. For many families, this exam determines the trajectory of an entire life. That level of pressure may sound extreme, but it produces something powerful. A pipeline of highly trained specialists in engineering, mathematics, physics, and artificial intelligence. And that pipeline feeds directly into China's technology industry. Companies like Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba recruit directly from these talent pools, which means education is not isolated from the economy. It is the foundation of it. But here is where the story gets even more interesting. China is not the only country running this race. India is running a completely different strategy, and in some ways it might be even more dangerous. Because India is not trying to control education from the top down. India is creating a massive competitive ecosystem. At the center of this ecosystem are institutions like the Indian Institutes of Technology. The IITs are considered among the most selective universities in the world. Each year, over 1 million students compete for a few thousand seats. The entrance exam is legendary for its difficulty. Students train for years just to attempt it, and the result is astonishing. Graduates from these institutions now lead some of the most powerful technology companies on Earth. The CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, studied at IIT Kharagpur. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, studied engineering in India before continuing his education in the United States. Many leaders in Silicon Valley have similar educational roots. India has effectively turned academic competition into a global leadership pipeline. But here is the deeper strategy. India is not only exporting talent, it is also building a digital learning revolution. In recent years, India launched one of the largest digital education platforms ever created. Government initiatives such as SWAYAM and the National Digital Education Architecture aim to provide high-quality learning to hundreds of millions of students. Online platforms, remote classrooms, and AI-driven tutoring systems are expanding rapidly. This means the traditional classroom is no longer the only place where Indian students can access advanced knowledge. The scale of this transformation is enormous, and it introduces a fascinating contrast between China and India. China focuses on centralized strategic planning. India focuses on decentralized competition and digital access. Two completely different educational philosophies, yet both are producing extraordinary results. And this is where the global implications become impossible to ignore. The future economy will be built on advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, advanced manufacturing. The countries that dominate these industries will likely be the countries that produce the most highly trained minds. This is why education is becoming the most important geopolitical battleground of the 21st century. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was defined by nuclear weapons and space exploration. The Education Cold War will be defined by algorithms, data, and innovation. But there is another twist in this story, one that many people overlook. Both China and India are also investing heavily in global academic influence. China has built partnerships with universities across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Programs like the Belt and Road Initiative include educational exchanges, scholarships, and research collaborations. Thousands of international students now study in Chinese universities. At the same time, India is expanding its own academic diplomacy. New international campuses, research partnerships, and technology collaborations are emerging. In other words, the competition is not just about educating domestic populations. It is about shaping the global intellectual ecosystem. And here is the uncomfortable question. Where does the rest of the world stand in this race? Recent reports have shown that several Western education systems are experiencing declining math and science scores. Teacher shortages are growing, student engagement is falling, and many universities are struggling with rising costs and declining enrollment. While these systems debate reforms, China and India are scaling aggressively. One country is building an enormous state-coordinated talent pipeline. The other is building the largest competitive education ecosystem on the planet. If current trends continue, the global distribution of intellectual power may shift dramatically. Imagine a future where the majority of the world's top engineers, AI researchers, and scientists come from just two countries. That future might not be very far away. But before you jump to conclusions, there is something important to understand. Both systems also face significant challenges. China's education model has been criticized for extreme pressure and limited creativity. In recent years, the government even introduced policies to reduce excessive homework and tutoring. India faces a different problem: access and inequality. While elite institutions produce extraordinary talent, millions of students still struggle with limited educational resources. In other words, the education Cold War is still evolving. Neither system is perfect, but both systems are experimenting at a scale humanity has never seen before. And that experimentation could reshape how the entire world thinks about learning. If you are still watching at this point, comment below with one question. Which education system do you believe will dominate the future? China's centralized strategy or India's competitive ecosystem? I read many of the comments, and your perspectives often shape future research videos. Now here is the final insight most people miss. The biggest lesson from China and India may not be about exams or universities. It is about national mindset. Both countries treat education as a strategic national priority. Not just a personal choice, not just a school policy, a national mission. When societies begin to see knowledge as a form of power, education stops being routine and becomes transformational. And that transformation may determine which nations lead the next century. If this analysis helped you understand the hidden forces shaping global education, share this video with someone interested in the future of learning and technology, and subscribe to the channel for more deep research on education systems, global power shifts, and the ideas shaping the next generation. Because the most important war of the 21st century will not be fought with weapons. It will be fought with knowledge, and the countries that master education may ultimately master the future.